Bonjour les amis. It is time for the fourth and final section of the glass essay by Anne Carson. Here we are in the thaw. I think I realized through revisiting this beloved poem with you all that I'd always thought that in this place where I grew up, there simply was no spring. I was just like, that's a season that doesn't happen here. But I believe that Anne Carson has helped me realize that it just looks different here. It looks like what this poem describes. It looks like thaw, and less like all the poetry I always thought I didn't understand in places where spring means flowers and buds and these sorts of things. So without more ado about that, I will read you the final section of this beloved poem. It is starting with a section called Thou. The question I am left with is the question of her loneliness, and I prefer to put it off. It is morning. Astonished light is washing over the moor from north to east. I am walking into the light. One way to put off loneliness is to interpose God. Emily had a relationship on this level with someone she calls thou. She describes thou as awake like herself all night and full of strange power. Thou woos Emily with a voice that comes out of the night wind. Thou and Emily influence one another in the darkness, playing near and far at once. She talks about a sweetness that, quote, proved us one. I am uneasy with the compensatory model of female religious experience, and yet there is no question. It would be sweet to have a friend to tell things to at night without the terrible sex price to pay. This is a childish idea, I know. My education, I have to admit, has been gappy. The basic rules of male-female relations were imparted atmospherically in our family. No direct speech allowed. I remember one Sunday I was sitting in the back seat of the car, father in front. We were waiting in the driveway for Mother, who came around the corner of the house and got into the passenger side of the car dressed in a yellow Chanel suit and black high heels. Father glanced sideways at her. "Showing a good bit of leg today, Mother," he said, in a voice which I, age 11, thought odd. I stared at the back of her head, waiting for what she would say. Her answer would clear this up. But she just laughed, a strange laugh with ropes all over it. Later that summer, I put this laugh together with another laugh I overheard as I was going upstairs. She was talking on the telephone in the kitchen. Well, a woman would be just as happy with a kiss on the cheek most of the time, but you know men, she was saying. Laugh. Not ropes, thorns. I have arrived at the middle of the moor, there where the ground goes down into a low, swampy place. The swamp water is frozen solid. Bits of gold weed have etched themselves on the underside of the ice like messages. I'll come when thou art saddest, laid alone in the darkened room, when the mad day's mirth has vanished and the smile of joy is banished. I'll come when the heart's real feeling has entire, unbiased sway, and my influence o'er thee stealing, grief deepening, joy congealing, shall bear thy soul away. Listen, 'tis just the hour, the awful time for thee. Dost thou not feel upon thy soul a flow of strange sensations roll, forerunners of a sterner power, heralds of me? Very hard to read the messages that pass between thou and Emily. In this poem, she reverses their roles, speaking not as the victim, but to the victim. It is chilling to watch thou move upon thou, who lies alone in the dark waiting to be mastered. It is a shock to realize that this low, slow collusion of master and victim within one voice is a rationale for the most awful loneliness of the poet's hour. She has reversed the roles of thou and thou, not as a display of power, but to force out of herself some pity for this soul trapped in glass, which is her true creation. Those nights lying alone are not discontinuous with this cold, hectic dawn. It is who I am. Is it a vocation of anger? Why construe silence as the real presence? Why stoop to kiss this doorstep? Why be unstrung and pounded flat and pine away, imagining someone vast to whom I may vent the swell of my soul? Emily was fond of Psalm 130, quote, "My soul waiteth on thou more than they that watch for the morning. I say more than they that watch for the morning." I like to believe that for her the act of watching provided a shelter, that her collusion with thou gave ease to anger and desire. In thou they are quenched as a fire of thorns, says the psalmist. But for myself, I do not believe this. I am not quenched. With thou or without thou, I find no shelter. I am my own nude, and nudes have a difficult sexual destiny. I have watched this destiny disclose itself in its jerky passage from girl to woman to who I am now, from love to anger to this cold marrow, from fire to shelter to fire. What is the opposite of believing in thou? Merely not believing in thou? No, that is too simple. That is to prepare a misunderstanding. I want to speak more clearly. Perhaps the nudes are the best way. Nude number 5, deck of cards. Each card is made of flesh. The living cards are days of a woman's life. I see a great silver needle go flashing right through the deck once from end to end. Nude number 6, I cannot remember. Nude number 7, white room whose walls, having neither planes nor curves nor angles, are composed of a continuous satiny white membrane like the flesh of some interior organ of the moon. It is a living surface, almost wet. Lucency breathes in and out. Rainbows shudder across it. And around the walls of the room a voice goes whispering, "Be very careful, be very careful." Nude number 8, black disc on which the fires of all winds are attached in a row. A woman stands on the disc amid the winds whose long yellow silk flames flow and vibrate up through her. Nude number 9, transparent loam. Under the loam, a woman has dug a long, deep trench. Into the trench, she is placing small white forms. I don't know what they are. Nude number 10, green thorn of the world poking up alive through the heart of a woman who lies on her back on the ground. The thorn is exploding, its green blood above her in the air. Everything it is, it has, the voice says. Nude number 11, ledge in outer space. Space is bluish black and glossy as solid water and moving very fast in all directions, shrieking past the woman who stands pinned to nothing by its pressure. She peers and glances for some way to go, trying to lift her hand, but cannot. Nude number 12. Old pole in the wind. Cold currents are streaming over it and pulling out into ragged, long, horizontal black lines, some shreds of ribbon attached to the pole. I cannot see how they are attached. Notches, staples, nails. All of a sudden the wind changes and all the black shreds rise straight up in the air to tie themselves into knots. Then untie and float down. The wind is gone, it waits. By this time, midway through winter, I had become entirely fascinated with my spiritual melodrama. Then it stopped. Days passed, months passed, and I saw nothing. I continued to peer and glance, sitting on the rug in front of my sofa in the curtainless morning with my nerves open to the air like something skinned. I saw nothing. Outside the window, spring storms came and went. April snow folded its huge white paws over doors and porches. I watched a chunk of it lean over the roof and break off and fall, and I thought, how slow, as it glided soundlessly past, but still, nothing. No nudes, no thou. A great icicle formed on the railing of my balcony, so I drew up close to the window and tried peering through the icicle, hoping to trick myself into some interior vision. But all I saw was the man and woman in the room across the street, making their bed and laughing. I forgot. I stopped watching nudes. I lived my life, which felt like a switched off TV. Something had gone through me and out, and I could not own it. Quote, "No need now to tremble for the hard frost and the keen wind. Emily does not feel them," wrote Charlotte the day after burying her sister. Emily had shaken free. A soul can do that. Whether it goes to join thou and sit on the porch for all eternity, enjoying jokes and kisses and beautiful cold spring evenings, you and I will never know. But I can tell you what I saw. Nude number 13 arrived when I was not watching for it. It came at night, very much like nude number 1, and yet utterly different. I saw a high hill and on it a form shaped against hard air. It could have been just a pole with some old cloth attached, but as I came closer, I saw it was a human body trying to stand against winds so terrible that the flesh was blowing off the bones. And there was no pain. The wind was cleansing the bones. They stood forth silver and necessary. It was not my body, not a woman's body. It was the body of us all. It walked out of the light.